Inhale through the mouth when the glass cleaner burned too sharply. Exhale slowly when the hallways grew quiet enough that footsteps echoed. Keep the cloth moving even when her thoughts didn't. Movement meant purpose, and purpose meant no one questioned why she was there. She survived by being unseen. The luxury hotel prided itself on illusion. Marble floors that never showed footprints. Mirrors so flawless they erased the people who polished them. Guests spoke of exclusivity and privacy, of power and discretion, as if those things appeared naturally instead of being maintained by women like her who worked before dawn and after midnight. She cleaned the same route every day, East Wing hallways first, then the mirrored panels near the private elevators, then the quiet corners where expensive silence lived. She knew which carpets muffled sound and which amplified it. She knew which doors were soundproof and which leaked secrets like bad plumbing. Her name was on the schedule, but it didn't matter. To the people who stayed here, she was not a person. She was a moving part of the building, like the lights or the air conditioning. Necessary, replaceable, invisible. She had learned long ago that invisibility was a kind of armor. Her eyes stayed down as instructed, hair pulled back tight, uniform pressed and colorless, no jewelry, no perfume, nothing memorable. But while her gaze appeared lowered, she watched everything reflected in the mirrors she polished. Power revealed itself in reflections. Men who owned companies walked differently than men who managed them. Men who were afraid filled silence with noise. Men who were dangerous didn't need to. She noticed who never checked exits and who checked them too often, who spoke softly because they expected to be heard, who spoke loudly because they feared they were. She said nothing. She never said anything. But her mind cataloged details the way other people collected souvenirs, the way one guest always stood with his back to the wall, the way another never removed his watch, even in bed, the way certain men were surrounded by others who pretended not to watch them while watching them constantly. Power gathered here, not the kind that smiled for cameras, but the kind that paid for entire floors to be emptied without explanation. The kind that arrived with men who didn't wear uniforms but moved like weapons. She had seen that kind of power before. Years ago, in a place that smelled like coffee and old wood and blood. She did not think about that directly. Thinking about it directly hurt too much. Instead, the memory lived in her instincts. In the way her shoulders tightened when voices dropped too low. In the way her stomach clenched when men smiled without warmth. In the way her hands never shook when danger passed nearby, only afterward, when it was safe to feel. The hotel staff joked about how quiet she was, about how she seemed to appear and disappear without sound. They said it kindly, without malice. They didn't know silence was something she had practiced. Silence had kept her alive once. Being ignored had taught her to notice everything. She noticed the rhythm of security patrols, how often guards rotated positions, which ones checked phones out of boredom and which checked them out of necessity. She noticed when patterns changed, when an extra man appeared where one wasn't needed, when hallways that were usually busy became empty without explanation. Today, the building felt wrong. The air was heavier, the quiet more deliberate. Floors above and below one specific suite had been cleared, not officially, not announced, but effectively. Guests rerouted, elevators reserved, staff reassigned with clipped instructions and tense expressions. Power had arrived. She cleaned mirrors as she always did, slow and thorough, cloth moving in steady circles. In the reflection, she saw men in dark suits take positions that did not match the hotel's security layout. Their eyes never rested. Their hands stayed close to their jackets. She saw one of them check his phone again, and again. That was when the unease settled into something sharper. She did not know who the man in the suite was yet. She did not need to. The building itself had told her. Men like him did not come without reason, and they did not bring this level of protection unless they expected something to go wrong. She kept cleaning. She listened to footsteps and silences, to the spaces between words spoken too softly to be overheard, but too confidently to be harmless. She watched reflections shift and align, watched bodies angle away from doors instead of toward them. She did not react, she did not hurry, she did not stare. That was the difference between ordinary people and survivors. Ordinary people looked directly at danger and froze. Survivors learned to watch without being seen, to feel threat before it announced itself, to recognize betrayal not by what was said, but by what was avoided. She wiped the glass clean until it reflected the hallway perfectly. In that reflection, she saw the future beginning to move. And she understood, with a calm certainty that frightened her more than panic ever could, that silence was about to become the most dangerous choice she could make again. The man arrived without announcement, but the building reacted instantly. The lights in the corridor seemed brighter, as if the walls themselves were alert. Footsteps slowed, voices, dropped, doors closed more carefully than usual. Power did not need to introduce itself, here it was felt. She kept cleaning. The cart moved softly along the marble, the wheels recently oiled by maintenance. Her hands followed routine spray, wipe, step, repeat. Nothing in her posture changed, yet everything inside her sharpened. In the reflection of the mirror, she saw him. Not his face at first. The movement came before the man. A subtle shift in space, the way other men unconsciously gave him room. The way shoulders straightened and spines stiffened as he passed. He walked like someone who expected the world to move for him and knew it would. 2 men preceded him, 3 followed. Not hotel security. These men did not scan the floor, they scanned people. Their eyes moved constantly, never resting, never soft. Hands stayed close to jackets, not adjusting cuffs, not checking watches, just ready. She noticed the difference immediately. Hotel guards looked outward. These men looked inward. At exits, at angles, at reflections. The man himself was calm. That was the most dangerous thing about him. No rush, no tension, no wasted movement. His steps were measured, like each one had already been calculated. She wiped the mirror slowly. Her eyes down as trained. In the glass, she studied his face without looking at him. Dark hair, controlled, not styled. A suit that fit too well to be bought off a rack. Not flashy, not loud, but unmistakably expensive. His expression was unreadable, not blank, but disciplined. Men like him did not need to announce authority. They carried it quietly because they had enforced it before. She felt a familiar tightening in her chest. Not fear exactly. Recognition. She had seen men like this once in another life. Men who spoke softly while deciding who would not leave the room alive. Men whose calm came from certainty, not mercy. The staff along the corridor froze into exaggerated professionalism. Smiles appeared too quickly, heads bowed too deeply. Someone murmured a greeting that was ignored. He did not look at them. Not because he was rude. Because they did not exist to him. She existed even less. And that was good. Being unseen allowed her to watch without interruption. She noticed how the man never turned his back to open space. How his head tilted slightly, as if absorbing information without effort. How one of the guards glanced toward the service corridor and then away too fast. That glance lingered in her mind. She followed her routine. Spray. Wipe. Step. Her body moved on habit, while her thoughts worked ahead of her. Power gathered here, not for rest, not for pleasure. Men like him did not hide in luxury hotels unless they needed to disappear temporarily. Or unless something was coming. The elevator doors opened nearby. She heard the soft mechanical sound, felt the change in pressure. The man stepped out fully into the hallway, now closer. The air seemed to tighten around him. One of the guards murmured something into an earpiece. Another adjusted position, slightly blocking a side corridor that had not needed blocking before. She cleaned the base of the wall carefully. Her reflection caught fragments of movement. Angles shifting. Distances closing. She remembered another hallway years ago. Not marble, not bright. A narrow space that smelled like old paint and fear. Men had stood there too. Smiling while deciding. Planning while pretending nothing was wrong. She had been ignored then as well. Young Quiet told to stay out of the way. She had listened. She had survived. Her hand slowed. Her breath steadied. This man was not alone. He was surrounded by loyalty enforced through fear and money. But fear created cracks. Money created motives. She did not know his name yet. She did not need it. The building told her enough. This was the kind of man whose death would make noise, and the kind of man whose enemies would be patient. She finished the mirror until it reflected perfectly. In that clean surface, she saw all of them clearly. The man, his guards, the spaces between them, and something else. A tension that did not belong. A wrongness that whispered instead of shouted. She moved on as instructed. Quiet, efficient, forgettable. But her mind stayed with the image of the man and the men around him. Because she understood something most people never did. Danger did not announce itself with chaos. It arrived calmly, well-dressed and confident. And when it came this close, someone always paid for not noticing soon enough. She slowed her pace without stopping. That was the first instinct. When something felt wrong, she never froze, she never rushed. She adjusted. The cart rolled softer. Her cloth moved slower. Her presence became even smaller. The hallway was quiet in a way that did not belong to luxury. This was not the comfortable silence of wealth. This was controlled silence. The kind that existed because someone wanted it that way. She wiped the edge of the mirror, and in the reflection she saw the guards again. Not all of them. Only two. They stood near the service corridor. Too far from the main door. Too close to the shadow between camera angles. She remembered that shadow. She had memorized the blind spots during her first week. Not on purpose. Not consciously. Her body had done it for her. Like it always did. One of the men checked his phone. Not casually. Not bored. Quick glance screen down. Again a few seconds later. She kept her eyes lowered. But her mind lifted. Hotel security did not check phones like that. Men guarding powerful targets did not either. Unless they were waiting. Unless they were coordinating. Her fingers tightened around the cloth. She loosened them immediately. Panic was loud. Control was silent. She moved closer, pretending to clean the metal trim along the wall. Close enough now to hear the faint vibration. A phone set to silent, but not off. The other guard leaned in slightly. Their shoulders angled together, blocking the corridor in a way that looked protective, but was not. Protection faced outward. This faced inward. She felt the old memory stir. A kitchen. A table. Men standing too close. Phones lighting up in their hands. Smiling while pretending to listen. Her breath stayed even. She did not need to see the screen. The behavior told her enough. People betrayed in patterns. They always had. They checked time more than surroundings. They avoided eye contact with the person they were betraying. They smiled at nothing. The larger guard smiled now. Not with his mouth. With his eyes. That was the look. Her stomach tightened. Not fear. Recognition. She sprayed cleaner on the wall panel. The scent burned her nose. She welcomed the pain. It kept her grounded. In the reflection, she saw movement near the private suite. The man was preparing to leave. His real guards tightened formation. The others did not move. That was wrong. When the principal moved, all protection moved. Except these two. Her mind counted without numbers. Distance. Timing. Exit paths. Service corridor. Basement access. Back stairwell. She had cleaned them all. She knew where the cameras blinked. Where they did not. Another vibration. This one longer. The smaller guard nodded once. A single sharp movement. That nod was not reassurance. It was confirmation. Something was about to happen. She shifted her cart, slightly blocking herself from view. Not hiding. Just existing. The man in the suit stepped forward now. Close enough that she could see the texture of the fabric in the mirror. Close enough that his presence pressed against the space. The guards near him were alert. Focused. Professional. The two behind were finished waiting. Her pulse stayed steady. Her hands did not shake. 8 years ago, she had learned that the moment before violence was the calmest. Men believed the plan was already successful. That was when they relaxed. She wiped the panel one last time. The surface gleamed. Everything was visible now. The man. The loyal guards. The traitors. The open space that should not be open. She understood then. With absolute certainty. The danger was not approaching. It was already inside. And if she did nothing, if she stayed invisible, if she let silence protect her again, someone else would die. She pushed her cart forward, toward the edge of consequence, toward the moment where being unseen would no longer save her. Because she had seen the mistake. And once you saw it, you were already part of what came next. Time began to stretch in a way she recognized. Not slowing. Not stopping. Just thinning. Moments became fragile like glass. Easy to shatter. Impossible to repair. She continued moving because stopping would draw attention. And attention was dangerous. Her cart rolled forward, the wheels barely whispering against marble. Her shoes made no sound. She had learned how to place her feet years ago, back when noise meant discovery, and discovery meant death. The man was closer now, so close that she could feel the change in air around him. Power carried weight. It pressed down on spaces and people alike. She did not look at him directly. She never did. Instead, she watched the mirrors. Watched the reflections tell the truth people hid. The two guards near the service corridor were no longer pretending. Their bodies had settled. No scanning. No alert tension. They were waiting. Waiting was the most dangerous posture of all. She passed a doorway, and her mind reached backward in time. A different doorway. A pantry. A narrow space where light cut through dust. Where she had stood frozen. Listening. Men had laughed then. Soft laughter. Relaxed laughter. They had already decided. She swallowed. Her throat tight but steady. She remembered the sound that came later. The one that followed the laughter. The sound that changed everything. She had stayed silent that day. Because she was told to. Because silence was safe. Because she believed adults knew better. They did not. Silence had not protected her family. It had buried them. Her grip tightened on the handle of the cart. Then relaxed. She was not that girl anymore. The man turned, slightly speaking to someone beside him. His voice was low, controlled. She could not hear the words. But she heard the tone. Finality. Her pulse ticked faster now. Not panic. Preparation. The service corridor door was in view. She could see the shadow beneath it. The darkness beyond. The guards exchanged another look. Not long. Not obvious. Enough. She understood the plan without hearing it. That was the terrible part. How familiar it felt. Exit. Redirect. Confusion. Final movement. She calculated distances. Steps. Seconds. If he took the elevator. If he followed routine. If nothing changed. There would be no warning. No second chance. Her breath shifted. Deeper. Slower. She remembered her grandmother's voice once. Soft but unyielding. Telling her that survival was not just about hiding. Sometimes it was about choosing the moment to step into danger. The cart reached the edge of the hallway. She should turn back now. This was her assigned limit. She hesitated. In the mirror, she saw the man pause, his guards tightening around him. The two near the service corridor remained still. That stillness screamed. Her heart pounded now, hard enough that she felt it in her ears. This was the point of no return. If she spoke, she would be noticed, seen, remembered. If she stayed silent, she would walk away clean, invisible, safe, and someone else would pay the price. She pushed the cart forward. The wheels clicked softly, a sound that seemed impossibly loud. The moment expanded. Every sense sharpened. She did not know his name, did not know his crimes, did not know his story. She only knew this. She had seen betrayal forming, and she would not survive another lifetime knowing she could have stopped it. The countdown had begun, and she was standing inside it. The bottle slipped from her hand on purpose. It hit the floor with a sharp sound that cut through the hall. Every head turned. Blue liquid spread across the marble slow and bright like a stain that could not be ignored. She dropped to her knees immediately. Apologetic posture. Eyes lowered. Voice small. The perfect excuse. One guard cursed under his breath. Another shifted his stance. The man stopped walking. Power paused. She wiped at the spill quickly. Too quickly. Her hands moving fast enough to look nervous. Slow enough to buy seconds. Seconds were everything. She felt eyes on her now. Not curiosity. Assessment. The two guards near the service corridor stiffened. They did not move to help. They did not look annoyed. They looked ready. Her chest tightened. This was it. She stood before fear could stop her. Before instinct dragged her backward into silence. She took one step forward. One of the guards moved instantly, hand rising toward his jacket. The sound of leather shifting was louder than the bottle hitting the floor. The man raised one hand. Stop. The word was calm. Absolute. The hallway froze. She lifted her head just enough. Not to challenge. Not to plead. To be heard. Your bodyguards are traitors. Leave by the back door now. The words fell between them like a blade. No shouting. No emotion. Just truth. The air cracked. One guard reached for her. Another moved toward the man. Too fast. Too wrong. The man did not move. He only turned his head slightly. The look he gave his guards was cold enough to drain blood. What did you say? His voice was low. Controlled. Dangerously calm. Her heart hammered, but her voice held. The two by the service corridor. The one with the scar and the one pretending to watch the elevator. They have been coordinating. Waiting. Your exit is compromised. A silence heavier than before settled. She saw the moment doubt became calculation. The man did not look at the guards she named. He looked at her. Really looked. Her uniform. Her posture. Her steady breathing. She was not panicking. That mattered. One of the loyal guards spoke quickly. Dismiss her. This could be a distraction. The man raised his hand again. No. He stepped closer to her. Close enough that she smelled his cologne. Clean, expensive, sharp. Why would you warn me? She did not answer immediately. She could not. Because the truth lived too deep. Because silence once killed people she loved. Because betrayal had a face, and she had seen it again. Because I have seen this before. She said quietly. The man studied her, then spoke into his earpiece without looking away. Check the service corridor now. Movement exploded. The two guards reacted instantly. Too instantly. They reached for weapons. That was the confirmation. The man moved faster than she expected, grabbing her wrist, pulling her back. Down. Nah. Gunfire did not erupt, but tension did. Loyal guards closed in, weapons drawn. The traitors bolted. They ran exactly where she knew they would. The back route. The basement access. Too late. Alarms blared. Not hotel alarms. Security ones. The man dragged her toward a different corridor. Not the service one. His grip was firm. Not cruel. "You walk with me," he said. She stumbled once, then matched his pace. Behind them, chaos erupted. Orders shouted. Footsteps pounding. She did not look back, because she already knew. The moment she spoke, her invisible life ended. And whatever came next would not be quiet. The corridor narrowed as they moved. Not by design, by necessity. The man chose paths that were not meant for guests. Corners without decoration. Doors without numbers. Spaces that existed only for those who knew how buildings truly worked. She did. He did not ask. He trusted the way she instinctively adjusted. The way she turned before instructions were given. The way her body already knew where danger would gather. Behind them, the hotel shifted into controlled chaos. Not panic. Containment. Orders were being given in low voices. Footsteps echoed in patterns that spoke of discipline, not fear. He did not release her wrist. His grip was steady, deliberate. Protective or controlling, she could not tell. Perhaps both. They passed a maintenance door. She reached for it without thinking. He followed instantly. Inside, the air changed. Cooler. Thicker. Heavy with oil and metal and silence. This space was not meant for elegance. It was meant for function. He finally released her, turning to face her fully. "Now speak," he said. Not a command. An invitation. Her heart pounded now. The delayed reaction. The safe moment when fear finally arrived. They were waiting. She said, "The two you left behind. They were not protecting you. They were positioning." "How do you know?" he asked. "Because they stopped watching you," she replied. "People about to act stop pretending." His eyes narrowed. Sharp assessing. "And why warn me?" She swallowed. Her mouth dry. Her hands still. "Because silence once killed people I loved," she said. "And I will not let it do that again." A pause. He studied her, as if recalculating something important. Then his earpiece crackled. Short, controlled words in another language. Confirmation without explanation. The traitors were gone. But not clean. Not successful. He closed his eyes briefly. Not relief. Anger. "You understand what you just did?" he said. "Yes." "You made yourself visible." "Yes." "You made yourself a witness." "Yes." His gaze held hers. Heavy. "Then you no longer belong to the world you were cleaning." Her breath caught, but she did not look away. "I never did," she said. Another pause. Longer this time. He stepped closer. Not threatening. Not gentle. Deliberate. "What is your name?" She hesitated, then answered. The truth had already begun. As they stood there in the hidden space between luxury and machinery, between power and consequence, she understood something with painful clarity. Speaking had not saved her. Not yet. But staying silent would have ended her anyway. The choice was already made. And the man who stood before her, the one she had just pulled from the edge of betrayal, was now the only barrier between her and the fallout. Outside the walls, the building settled back into silence. But inside this narrow space, a different future was taking shape. One where invisibility was no longer protection. And truth came with a price she was only beginning to understand. They did not return to the public corridors. He led her deeper, through spaces that smelled of concrete and electricity, where walls carried scars instead of art, where the building stopped pretending. Men waited there. Not many. Enough. They looked at her with questions they did not ask, their attention sharp but restrained. They were loyal. She could feel the difference. The man spoke quietly to them. Short sentences, controlled tone, authority without effort. Two of the guards moved away immediately. Orders being carried out. Consequences already in motion. She stood where he left her. Hands folded. Back straight. Heart loud. This was the moment after survival. The one that hurt more than the danger itself. Because now there was time to think. He returned after several minutes. His expression colder. Focused. Resolved. They ran. He said. But they failed. She nodded. She had known they would. They always did when plans unraveled too early. He studied her again. Not as a threat. Not as an inconvenience. As a variable. You did not panic. He said. Even when my men reached for weapons. Panic wastes time. She answered. His eyes flickered at that. Interest. Recognition. Most people beg. He said. Most people cry or lie. She did neither. She had cried once. Years ago. In a room where no one listened. She had learned. Why do you notice things like this? He asked. Because I learned too. She replied. That answer was incomplete. They both knew it. He stepped closer. Not invading. Testing. Who taught you? Life. She said. And people who thought I was not listening. That earned a pause. He turned away. Gestured for her to follow. They moved again. Up a short stair. Into a room with no windows. A safe room. Not a prison. Not comfort. Truth lived here. Sit. He said. She did. He remained standing. Hands behind his back. Like a man considering an execution. Or a promotion. You saved my life. He said. She did not respond. People who save my life rarely do it without motive. He continued. What do you want? She looked at him fully now. Really looked. A man used to being obeyed. A man shaped by betrayal. A man who understood power the same way she understood fear. I want to survive. She said. His mouth curved slightly. Not a smile. Honest. He said. You know survival is no longer simple for you. Yes. You will be remembered. You will be questioned. You will be hunted by those who failed today. Yes. You will never clean mirrors again. He added. She breathed in. Then out. I was never cleaning mirrors. She said. I was watching. That changed something. Not trust. Not affection. Alignment. He nodded once. Then you will stay with me. He said. Until I decide what you become. She met his gaze. Steady. And if I refuse, then you leave. He said. With protection for one night. After that you face what comes alone. The room felt smaller. She thought of the hallway. The mirrors. The moment she chose to speak. She stood. I will stay. She said. Not because you saved me, but because you see what others miss. His eyes darkened. Good. He said. Because people like you are rare. And people like me do not survive without them. Outside the room. The building returned to its illusion. Inside. A different partnership had begun. The night did not end when the building quieted. That was when the real work began. She sat at the long table in the room that had no windows. Light came from above, cold and even, designed to reveal everything. Hide nothing. Files were placed in front of her. Not paper. Screens. Live feeds. Names, faces, routes, times. He stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence. Not looming. Anchoring. You see patterns. He said, show me. She did not rush. She never rushed. Her eyes moved slowly across the screens. Security rotations. Personnel access logs. Movement through restricted corridors. At first, everything looked correct. Too correct. That was the problem. Perfect systems did not exist. Only managed ones. She leaned forward, her mind reaching backward and outward at the same time, comparing what she saw to what she felt. There, she said quietly. He leaned closer. That guard. Third shift. Always logs in on time. Always logs out on time. That is good. He said. No. She replied. That is impossible. His head tilted. People are not perfect. She continued. Machines are. Someone is cleaning these logs. Not the floors. The records. The room grew still. She switched feeds. Pulled up movement history. Overlaid it with access clearance. The same name appeared again. Not often, but consistently. Always present when something went wrong. Never present when consequences followed. Who is he? She asked. He answered without hesitation. Family. The word landed hard. Cousin. Advisor. Trusted. Her stomach tightened. Family is where systems break. She said. He did not argue. She kept going. You said the traitors today were guards. She said. But guards are tools. They do not build plans. They follow them. Someone else is feeding them information. Someone who knows how to stay clean. She pulled up financial movement. Not accounts. Timing. Payments did not spike. They flowed. Smooth. Hidden. This is long-term. She said. Not a hit. A replacement. He closed his eyes briefly. You are describing a coup. He said. Yes. One built quietly. Without noise. Without bodies. Until today. She turned to look at him. They expected you to die quietly. She said. An accident. An elevator. A fall. He opened his eyes. Cold. And when I did not, they would move openly. She finished. Silence pressed in. He stepped away, hands tightening behind his back. I trusted him. He said. She did not soften the truth. That is why it worked. The words hurt. They were meant to. She turned back to the screen, zoomed in on one file. Look at this, she said. The man had access to everything. Schedules, security routes, personnel changes. But he never touched the obvious things. Never left fingerprints. Instead, he adjusted people. Placed them. Let them fail when needed. He did not push. He waited. Like a spider. She said. No. He replied. Like a brother. The room felt colder. This was the real betrayal. Not the men who ran. Not the guards who reached for weapons. But the one who watched. And waited. And smiled. She leaned back slowly. He thinks you are predictable. She said. That you will respond with force. That you will burn everything to find him. He smiled thinly. He does not know you. He said. She met his gaze. He does not know me either. That was when the plan changed. Not reaction. Not retaliation. Deception. We let him think he won. she said. We feed him what he expects. Weakness. Division. Ray. He nodded. And while he celebrates, we map his entire network. She continued. Every contact. Every compromised soul. We let him believe the throne is empty. And then we remove the floor beneath him. He studied her now. Not as an asset. Not as protection. As an equal. You were cleaning mirrors yesterday. He said. She looked at the screens. At the truth reflected back. I was always watching. She said. And now. So are they. The trap had been set. And the most dangerous man in the building had no idea he was already standing inside it. The trap did not snap shut all at once. It tightened slowly. Like breath leaving lungs. Like hope draining without panic. He let the lie travel. That was the brilliance of it. Weakness was always louder than strength. Anger drew attention. Silence drew predators. The messages went out exactly as planned. Carefully imperfect. Delays where there should have been precision. Conflicting instructions. Small fractures that suggested collapse. She watched the network respond. Movement increased. Calls multiplied. People who had stayed hidden for years began to surface. Fear made them careless. The man believed what he saw. That was the fatal mistake. He believed the mirrors. Not knowing who had cleaned them. They met him at night. Not in public. Not with witnesses. A private residence. Lights low. Security reduced on purpose. The man entered confident. Relaxed. Certain. He smiled when he saw Enzo. You look tired. He said. You should have listened to me. She stood behind Enzo. Not hidden. Not announced. The man noticed her then. Who is she? He asked. The reason you are here. Enzo replied. Recognition flickered. Not fear. Not yet. You trusted her. The man said. A cleaner. That was the last time he spoke with certainty. She stepped forward. You built this slowly. She said. Not with guns. With access. With patience. His eyes narrowed. You placed people where they would not be questioned. You paid debts quietly. You did not push. You waited. Silence pressed in. You expected him to react with violence. She continued. To burn everything down to find you. You never considered that he would watch instead. The man laughed once. Sharp. You think this ends here? He said. You think removing me solves betrayal? She met his gaze. No. She said. It teaches consequences. The doors closed. The sound was final. Men stepped forward from the shadows. Not rushing. Not angry. Prepared. The man tried to speak. To negotiate. To remind Enzo of blood. Of history. Of family. Enzo did not respond. He looked at her. Is there anything else? He asked. She shook her head. No. She said. He has said everything he ever will. The man understood then. Not the plan. Not the betrayal. The choice. He was no longer the center. He was the example. Enzo moved closer. Close enough that the man could see what certainty looked like. You tried to kill me quietly. Enzo said. You tried to replace me slowly. You failed completely. The man opened his mouth. But the words stayed trapped. Because words had no power left. She did not turn away. She watched. Not with satisfaction. Not with guilt. With acceptance. The sound was brief. Controlled. Final. When it ended, the room felt larger. Lighter. Something poisonous had been removed. Enzo exhaled slowly. It is done. he said. She nodded. No, she replied. It has begun. He looked at her. People will test this, she said. They always do. He reached for her hand. Then they will learn, he said. She did not squeeze his fingers. She simply held them, because she understood now. Justice was not loud. It was deliberate. And power did not come from fear alone. It came from knowing who was watching, and who would never look away again. The building exhaled after the night was over. Not relief. Not peace. Just acceptance. Morning light crept through tall windows, soft and indifferent. The city moved, as it always did, unaware that power had shifted while it slept. She stood by the glass watching people below. Office workers with coffee cups. Delivery trucks. Lives untouched by the choices made in the dark. He came up behind her. Not silent. Not loud. Present. It is finished, he said. She did not turn. Finished things rarely stayed that way. It is stabilized, she replied. A pause. You have changed everything, he said. No, she answered. I made it visible. That was the difference. Power had always existed here. Fear had always enforced it. What had been missing was clarity. He stepped beside her. Close but not claiming. They will talk, he said. Stories will spread. Let them, she said. Stories are warnings wearing entertainment. He watched her now. Not evaluating. Not measuring. Seeing. You could leave, he said. Now that the threat is removed. You could disappear with protection, money, a new name, safety. She finally turned. And wait for the next man like him to rise. She asked. Silence. You know they always do. She continued. Systems do not break because of one man. They break because no one watches between transitions. His jaw tightened. Stay, he said. Not as a favor. Not as gratitude. As what? She asked. As necessity. He replied. The word settled heavy and right. She nodded once. Good, she said. Because I am done surviving quietly. He studied her face. The calm. The certainty. The absence of fear. You understand what this means, he said. Yes. It means power will test me, she said. Men will underestimate me. Some will resent me. And you, he said. I will watch, she replied. I will listen. I will notice what others ignore. That is how betrayal begins. He reached for her hand. Not pulling. Offering. She took it. The choice was made without ceremony. Days passed. Then weeks. Her uniform disappeared. Replaced by presence. People learned quickly. Not to lie to her. Not because she threatened. Because she remembered. She redesigned access flows. Reduced single points of failure. Built systems that assumed betrayal instead of hoping against it. He let her. Because results followed. Whispers changed tone. Her name was not spoken loudly. But it was spoken. She no longer cleaned mirrors. She read them. She saw fear before it formed. Ambition before it acted. Loyalty before it decayed. And when danger came, as it always did, it was met early. Quietly. Efficiently. One evening, she stood in the same hallway where it began. The marble polished. The mirrors flawless. She caught her reflection. Not the woman she had been. Not the girl who stayed silent. Someone else entirely. He joined her, standing where she could see both of them in the glass. You know, he said, they will never see you coming. She smiled slightly. That is the point. Power did not announce itself anymore. It observed. And in every reflection, every shadow, every quiet pause, she was there, watching, ready.